Welcome back to Potions and Processing. I am your host, Raven White. I had a very fun weekend this past weekend. I had a very hot weekend this past weekend. The heat index here where I live reached an all-time peak, and it was a overall feeling of like 104 degrees outside, and it happened to be the weekend where I was going to be outside in a building with no ventilation and no access to any kind of electricity or plugs. Well, we did eventually get electricity and plugs, but we had to work very hard for it. This past weekend, I attended a Viking festival. It will come as no surprise that I'm a huge nerd. I love all kinds of things medieval, Renaissance, Viking festival. I have played Magic the Gathering. I own several Magic the Gathering decks. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, you name it, I'm a fan. Yes, I'm a gamer. I would be a cosplayer if I had the budget. You already know I'm a writer. And this past weekend, me and several of my friends took my company and my books to a Viking festival where we peddled our wares, our sacred tomes, and convinced people to take them home with them. I say me very loosely because it was really my friends who did the majority of the work. I've mentioned I am chronically ill. I have a lot going on in my very tired body, and I have done the Viking Festival in the past, and it's always been a lot of fun. We usually do really well at the festival, but it was not something that I was going to be able to do this year. Last year, it nearly took me out. I unfortunately have a really bad heat intolerance, and last year I really had a hard time getting through it, nearly passed out a couple of times. It was just not well, and it was not safe for me to be there. This year, my health is even worse than it was last year, and so I just didn't think that it was something I was going to be able to physically do. One of my authors, who has also become a really close friend of mine, David Grinnell, is the author of Ashes, the Antiquarian, and Moonglade. He offered to pick up the slack and host the table this year with his fiance and his friends, and so they did. They hosted the table Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and sold our books, and not just his own books, but everybody's books in the whole company. And I just think that that was really beautiful. So we all showed up in our best Viking attire or Viking adjacent because it was hot. My dear friend Muse 3D printed a whole bunch of really cool stuff for us to sell on the table and give away to the kids who were trading things like little corvid bird skulls and bookmarks and all kinds of really cool things. He helps come set up, set down, the whole 9 yards. One thing I did not really anticipate when I started my press was how much the community would foster and grow outside of me over the last 6 years. Whenever I kind of feel a little bit down or depressed about my business or myself, whenever those little gremlins in my head start talking about how I'm not good enough or what I do is not good enough or that my chronic illness somehow makes me worth less than other people or other more abled people. One of my friends told me something once, and I hold it very dear to me. They told me that there are many, many presses out there, but there are far fewer communities. And I think that that is very true. My time in the industry is not as long as many other people, but it has told me a few things. And it is that there are not many people you can trust out there. And that when you find good people, you hold on to them and you don't let them go. And when other people invest into you, you make sure you return that. I am so incredibly grateful for my community who showed up for me and helped me do something that I really did not think that I was going to be able to do at all. And it was the only festival I was able to attend this year. And thanks to them, I did not even have to be there the whole time. I came in late and I left early the whole time. And that was a really wonderful thing, that to know that my company still got to be there. All of our books got to still be there, but I did not have to worry about being there myself. Thank you, David. Thank you, Gina, Corian, and Doreen for showing up and for being a part of this experience. It means a lot to the whole Curious Corvid clan. And even though Curious Corbett is not directly tied to potions and processing and Curious Corbett were both born from the same heart and from the same soul, mine. And they both came from the first original place, which was from this desire to build something from my trauma, to create something better from it, and to work through it. And I want to talk about that a little bit today because I talked a bit about that at the very end of last week's episode. So let's get into it. I have to keep this week's episode a little bit shorter because it is hot and I am tired and I'm still tired from the weekend. But last week's episode was talking more about this cage that I lived in, this cage that I had been locked in for such a long part of my childhood. And I'm going to do my screen magic here. There's not going to be a lot of content warnings for this episode. I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics, but I am going to recap some things I talked about. So here are your content warnings for things I have talked about in the past, some things that are going to be lightly mentioned. So if you do go back and recap any videos you missed, these are things that are mentioned in it, just so you have awareness and you can take care of your mental health, because that is important to me, because I care about you. This series is just the beginning. Walking you through the cage feels like so much. It feels like a lot to me. But it's really just the beginning, because there's still so much from before and there's so much after. And you might wonder why I would start in the middle, but the middle is how I ground myself in my memories, because I base so much of my memories pre and post cage. The cage is often one of the hardest things for me to talk about. And I figured we might as well just dive into it. I promised myself that when I started this series, I wasn't going to hold back anymore. I wasn't going to sugarcoat. I wasn't going to deny myself the harsh ugliness of everything I've been through, because I've already done that for everybody else. And I want to be the adult that I deserved to have advocate for me when I was a child, because I want to be that for the children now who are suffering. And I want to be that for you on the other side of the screen. If you are a child, if you are a teenager, if you are a young adult, if you are an older adult, I want to be this person for you, to let you know that it was not your fault, that you didn't deserve it, that you have never deserved it, that whatever was done to you, no matter in what capacity, that it doesn't matter if it was as bad as mine, if it was to any kind of extreme, or whatever variation on the levels of trauma, it doesn't matter. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. You didn't deserve to be talked to that way. You didn't deserve it. And you need someone to tell you that. Everybody needs someone along their journey to tell them, you did not deserve to have that happen to you. You didn't deserve to have someone speak to you like that. And I want to be that person. For whoever stumbles across my videos, whoever you are along your way, I just want you to know you didn't deserve it. And sometimes we need someone to tell us, you have to be honest about what happened to you. The only way to get over something, or maybe to get through it is a better term, is to be honest about it. I've reached a point in my journey where I know that there are things that have happened to me I will never get through. I won't ever get over. I will never have a point where it's not going to hurt. They hurt less than they used to, but they're never going to stop hurting entirely. I'm still finding ways to make peace with it. And I'm still finding ways to wake up every day and be okay with it. But I am still waking up every day. I'm still making the choice to wake up every day, because I know that the value that there is in myself is not based on whatever has happened to me and whatever was done to me, or the darkness that lives inside of me because of it, because there is darkness in me and I acknowledge that. And I do have heaviness in me, and I have thought very dark and terrible things. And sometimes I still do. And I go to therapy, and I'm a very strong advocate for therapy, because it has helped me unpack things that sometimes you just can't do on your own, and it is okay. It's not a weakness. And I know that therapy is also a privilege, and I couldn't afford it for a very long time. I still have to budget really hard to afford it because I pay out of pocket for it. But I want you to know there is hope and there is healing on the other side. There really is. When I was growing up, I had no reason to believe that there was anything better. And for a long time, I couldn't even envision having a future. I couldn't see into the future. I couldn't plan. I couldn't and I still really can't. I can't really plan for a future. I don't see a future. It's very hard for me to see past a certain point, and that's part of trauma. That's a traumatic response. I think it's important people know that. That it doesn't mean that you're going to die at a certain point. It doesn't mean that there's not time for you. It's just it's trauma and it can heal. Okay? The things that we go through, some people will say, "Oh, they make you stronger." And some people will say, "Look at all the good things it's done for you," or "Look at who you are now because of it." And I'm not really a fan of all of that because I know I would still be a pretty cool person if none of those things had happened to me. In fact, I think I would be such a stronger and better person if none of those things had happened to me. In fact, it makes me cry every time I think about it. I would be such a better, cooler person if none of these awful things had happened to me because my trauma didn't make me strong. I did. I had to. I had to make me strong. I didn't have a choice. I would be a much healthier, well adjusted person if I didn't have to go through all of this crap. But I did. So I just have to keep on making the choice to keep on going through it and keep on keeping on. And I built a really beautiful life for myself, and a life that I really love, with so many people that I love. And I found out that I have this incredible ability to love, this really beautiful ability to love beyond what normal, average people have. So I say all of this to let you know that trauma does make you different, and trauma does set you apart. Trauma will change you, and it will redefine you, and it will twist you, it will morph you into something different. But it doesn't have to make you into something bad or dark, although dark is not necessarily terrible because, we wouldn't have the stars if it wasn't dark. I'm a poet. Out of my trauma, I decided to write, and I wrote. I wrote books and pages of poetry. And from that poetry, I wrote I Am Raven, my very first poetry collection, and it's not very good. I don't think it's very good. But a lot of people thought it was good. Enough people thought it was good that I started a community, and I met other writers, and I met other people who felt like I did. And I realized I wasn't alone. And from there, I built a business, and it continued to grow, and I made more friends, and I met more people. I met bad people. I learned more hard lessons, but I grew, and I still have really bad days. And I have some days where I really don't know how I'm going to make it. But then I have days like this past weekend for these people that I didn't know 6 years ago show up, and they show how much they care, not just for me, but for everything I've built. And it all started because I just decided one day that I was stronger than everything else I'd been through, because I was better than everything else I'd been through. And I was going to be continuing to be better than everything else I'd been through. Because it wasn't my trauma that made me stronger, it was me. And it's the same for you. You don't have to give ownership of anything about you to anybody else. We give up pieces of ourselves, our entire life, to everybody else around us. And that's not always a bad thing. We do it for the people that we love. We do it for our jobs. We do it for our futures. We do it for our communities. But I just want you to know that when it comes down to who you are deep down inside, what makes or breaks you in the dead of night when you wake up in a panic, or in the wee hours of the morning when you're not sure if you can make it another day, when you have moments in the middle of your day, when you have a smell that takes you back to a certain place, or a sound that stops you dead in your tracks because it makes you remember, and you just have to keep on going on because you can't have a breakdown in the middle of a work week because you have to save those for the quiet moments on Fridays. Those moments, those are all you, keeping yourself still going. Nothing else. And I just wanted to remind you, you're doing great because you're still here. And that is so incredibly hard to still be here. It is so hard to still be here. I know how hard it is to still be here. Oh, but it's so worth it to still be here because we're here right now. And you're on that screen and I'm on this screen and we're pretty cool. It's wild. I did not expect to live past the age of 19, but I'm 34 now. I don't know how long I'll live till, but I'm glad I got to live for as long as I did. I really hope that if you stayed for this whole video, that you feel better or stronger or more empowered because you are. And maybe I am just crazy. I know I am, but I just feel like it's important because nobody told me that back in the day. So many people told me, "Oh, your trauma makes you so strong. All this is so, it'll all work out. It all comes together." And sometimes it doesn't all come together, and sometimes it just sucks. And sometimes it's just bad, and it's okay for it to just be bad. It's all right to just admit that it's bad. And it's okay for you to talk about how terrible it is. And it's okay for you to admit to yourself that it sucks and that it's bad. And then I want you in the same breath to remember that you're stronger than it. And I want you to go get help. And I want you to talk to somebody about it. If I have to do all of this and I had to do it on my own, y'all are going to have to do it too. Okay? It's just the rules. It's just the rules. That's this episode of Potions and Processing. We're going to keep on keeping on, get back into more cage content, and keep talking about this cult, and keep talking about all this wild stuff that I went through. It's almost July, which means that I have to get into the countdown to when my abuser officially gets out of prison. I've never really felt like I've had a ticking time clock, like really, before. But I woke up in the dead sweat the other night and I felt it in my chest. And I want to make sure that if anything happens, I get as much content out as I possibly can. Remember, we may be different species, but we're all part of the same family. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will see you next week.